Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I wanted to thank you for joining me today as we continue our weekly discussions based on the book, The Integral Human Being. Wanted to welcome all of you to this amazing book and wanted to share with you that the integral human being is part of the psychology series or psychology collection, a 16 book series by spiritual author Joanna de Angelis in close collaboration with Divaldo Pereira Franco. Joanna de Angelis created a bridge between spiritism and depth psychology. And I invite you to be here with me discussing some of the issues and even therapies when they're offered in this book. If we consider how vulnerable we are, this is a moment that humanity as a whole is undergoing a lot of pain and suffering. So, this book to me is just a gift. It discusses root causes and solutions to many of our own psychological issues. And our focus is to bring on these weekly topics found in this amazing little book. And the ultimate goal is to ask ourselves, how do I ensure I have balance, stability, emotional maturity despite all that is going around me? If we can take a moment to just discuss the book itself, right? So this series of talks is based on chapter by chapter. There are 40 chapters in this book, and the book itself is divided into 9 parts. Today, the topic is the concepts of health. Very short, by the way. We should be done in 10, 15 minutes, but concepts of health. And it's important for us to know that, as you can see in the screens, many different parts. This is the beginning of the modern diseases part of the book, but it ranges from the pursuit of reality to the future of human beings, if we think about it. And I invite you to explore with me these themes and really look at how life come to us from two different lenses, a spiritist or spiritual, as well as the lens of depth psychology. Thank you so much, as I said before, to be here with me. And as we embark in the first really short part of today's discussion, we wanted to talk about the definitions. And if you think about it, it's important for us to ask ourselves, what is health? How do we define it? For example, define health as a state in which I don't have any illness or I don't have any injuries to this body. The World Health Organization, who explains that health is the absence of diseases, but who does not say that the absence of disease necessarily constitute a state of health, right? So they define health as the state of complete physical, mental, and social well being, not merely as the absence of disease, of infirmity. So it's really important for us to start to first and foremost create this framework by which we say and define health. It's not just I'm not sick, but how am I physically, mentally, and socially? And from that perspective that we can say health is the result from this interdependent relationship, right? So I must seek my psychological well-being. I really need to ascertain my organic and physical balance. And on a social economical perspective, it's also important for me to obtain a financial stability as well as a sense of satisfaction in the context that I live on. Joanna de Angelis calls our attention to the fact that this period that we humanity are going through a transition, and as we know, it's a transitional period from what spiritism calls the world of trials and atonement to the world of regeneration. And Joanna says, this transitional period is exemplified or really exacerbated because when we live this time many times of not moderation but in fact a time of excesses, we start to see things that perkle up, and they are emotional conflicts, they are organic disorder. And we also see, as we've been talking about in the past few weeks, those social economic difficulties. And they are, just simply put, the result of social economic disparity. We see all of it daily. I don't know about you, but I myself experienced that, and it just hurts me. It impacts me. It leads me to a state of sadness when I see all of that in me and others. And Joanna really pushes us to believe that, or to understand that society is sick and it impacts us, right? The disease, if you will, the sickness of our society, because we are in it as members of society individually maladjusted. We contribute to the general state of society, and society sick that makes us sick, and because we're sick we make society even sicker in this vicious cycle that is this sense of balance. And as humanity, uh, we're at a loss. We're at a loss when it comes to finding meaning in life, right? Instead, what we do, we don't know how to bring meaning, so we go for the next best substitute. We look for pleasure. We look for what in our still immature brain or immature spirit, in that sense, we end up looking for what makes us feel okay or feel good. And this pleasure seeking is, or maybe even if it's of a brief moment, an appearance of a healthy life, but it's actually the promoter, the mechanism to which we are more and more reaching this ill emotional state, right? Diseases come from many different origins, many different sources. And if you think about it, diseases are brought on by germs, by viruses, by, yes, trauma, accidents. And that's not all. If we put that as an external source of disease, we are only seeing one side of the equation, because the other really strong that permeates us and it's very, very hard. If you think about it, right, how hard it is, for example, today to get a firm diagnosis on a disease. Let's think the other flip of that, which is that stems from our mental issues, that comes from within, and it is externalized. And it is sad because unfortunately we insist in looking for the root causes in us to those somatized illnesses, those diseases that are not born out of viruses or bacteria, etc., those that come from within. And it's only we're only able to detect and diagnose if we were to look inside of us. We don't, right? We in fact we are more comfortable when either we ignore or suppress or turn a blind eye to what we are, who we are, how we feel. And we do this and we end up with contradictory opinions. We end up with bizarre behaviors, and we end up most often with a reactive instead of proactive uh, uh, life of looking and consciously finding, seeking, and finding a life that is in alignment with our inner goals. So, in so many words, what I'm saying is it's already hard to understand, to detect the causes of our externally driven diseases, right? It is much, much, much harder to find those that are stemming from inside out. And the only way that we can start to have an inkling to understand what is happening to us is to really look at us, face us, confront us, and align who we are, how we feel with how we live. And unfortunately, we don't do either. But let's just briefly conclude this topic because Joanna tells us, and this is the illness and health discussion, right? That when we are faced with those illnesses and even death, we are shocked. And she says, we somehow, and those are my words, by the way, but we somehow awaken from a dream state or a state of denial. We often become afraid, right, as a norm, and we have to deal with the reality that we're not really living in accordance to what we really are. And at that point of sickness, or as she says, even death, we end up finding ourselves meeting who we truly are, and that is a stranger. And it's a stranger within that we never took the time to really understand. And that's a really interesting concept, right? If you were to ask, okay, Joanna, what is a healthy individual? How would you consider that individual that is in alignment with who you are and how you live? And she would probably says, well, a healthy individual is someone who's engaged. It's someone who participates, someone who is responsible, who is alert, who is an active contributor, an active member of a larger group, be a family unit or community or society at large. And she would also say that those healthy individuals are aware, and because they're responsible, they go for whatever it takes to enrich their lives with a sense of beauty, a sense of happiness, a sense of purpose. And she finally says, because of the healthy individual seeking, right, this pursuit of real happiness, not pleasure but real happiness, they end up in the effort of becoming happy. They also become full of inner peace, a sense of security, a sense of power. Okay, but what's going on with us? Where are we? What is our current state? And unfortunately, generally speaking, we as a society really, seldom reach that state of well being. And because of that, we live with the absence of health. We live in a state of unwell being. And because of that, we are afraid, we're anxious, we are pessimistic. We always see that the next day will be not so easy to control as today. We become hopeless, and this is really important for people, for example, my age, as we are aging, and so many of us are living lives that are really meaningless and living lives in bodies that are sick. And it is this really not good state to think about. Well, I'm okay today, but what about tomorrow, right? And but she says, what if that's all there is? The good news, according to Joanna, is that at some point there are no longer alternatives outside of the one that we have to confront who we are, to look deeply into the issues that we go through, to embrace those difficulties. There's no other way out without doing that. And in the absence of alternatives, right? At that point, Joanna says, hey, at that at this point, at this juncture, we end up changing the courses of a lifetime. We, as you may have thought about, many of people that you know that were going through this journey of getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and at some point says, I have to do something. I have to have less stress. I have to, I don't know, go to the academy, the fitness center, and exercise. I need to change my diet. I have to sleep. I have to feel that it's no longer this rat race that I belong. With that, we end up facing and making some life altering decisions, facing reality, and changing the course from going downhill to perhaps plateau or even go up. Let's think about it. At our worst moments, right? Those terrible, terrible, difficult moments, those are the moments that allow us to somehow be awakened, right? And in those really important moments that we stop using escaping mechanism and we choose to enter or to choose this path that we no longer access or utilize escape mechanism. We choose to enter a road, a journey of authenticity, a road of self discovery, a road of working ourselves, or in other words, inner transformation. And we start, Joanna says, this is very important. At that point, we start to become enlightened. We start to develop emotionally. Wait, wait, wait. Unfortunately, this is not a one size fits all scenario. There are some of us that come into that juncture that we could make some life altering decisions instead of confronting that reality and start to really deeply focusing on what is there? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Right? We prefer a very different path. And instead of, I don't have any ways out, I just say, okay, I can't deal with it. So instead of course correcting, I'm going to destroy. I opt for a scenario that is self destructive for me. And in this alternative scenario, right, when we are confronted with difficulties, instead of developing, instead of becoming enlightened, instead of finding our own strength, we let go. We let go of our goals, and we let go of our sense of dignity, and we really end up embracing many ways that we become sick. Those are pathological states, that many of them that we fall under. So it is sad, but in a conclusion to this discussion today, we have to see, we have to look that a healthy state for us simply means us, individuals, communities, and society at large deciding to choose life, to choose balance, to choose reality. That is not easy. We're going to continue our discussion next week, but for now, as I told you, this is a very, very short chapter, and we wrap up this conversation with just an invitation for you to join me in the very next chapter, which is the second chapter of this fifth part of the book, which is called Neurotic Behaviors. So we're going to focus on neurosis and our behaviors that just exemplify those neuroses. But until then, I want to wish you a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and look forward to see you next time. Bye bye.